What's your name tag and what's your real name?
Theo thống kê, trong 6 năm qua, quận Cam đã chứng kiến sự gia tăng về các vụ tội thù ghét lên đến 146% và các sự cố thù ghét lên đến 206%. So với năm 2021, đã có 178% gia tăng về hoạt động thù ghét có động cơ kỳ thị được báo cáo trong các trường học. Trong chương trình thảo luận về đề tài Stop the Hate, một nhóm gồm 6 em học sinh của trường trung học Westminster đã cùng nhau tìm hiểu, chia sẻ về vấn đề này. Hãy nghe các em tự giới thiệu về bản thân mình cũng như cảm nhận của các em khi khẳng định mình là một người Mỹ gốc Việt.
Hi, my am. So thank you so much for coming out. The very first thing, I want to give you guys a chance to also tự giới thiệu một chút, to let people know who you are, right? And who are we getting these different statements from? Because most importantly, this is not all just coming from one perspective, but we want to hear from you guys. So, Anne, go ahead, Anne. You can tự giới thiệu trước nha.
Xin chào quý vị khán giả, em tên là An Nguyễn, hiện tại em đang học lớp 12 tại trường trung học Westminster High School và em là phụ trách giao lưu cộng đồng văn hóa cho Vietnamese American Culture Club VACC ở Westminster High School. Em cũng đồng thời là Senior Past President cho ASB và em cũng một phần của giao lưu cộng đồng cho Việt, which is a non-profit organization that advocate for the middle class Vietnamese American here.
And để cô Mai Khang cũng có thêm một cái câu hỏi nữa, like what does it mean to be Asian American to you?
Bản thân em thì em thấy là being a Vietnamese American ở trong một cộng đồng mà nhiều người Việt ở trong cái Little Saigon này thì em cảm thấy rất là tự hào và em cảm thấy là Vietnamese American là một cái culture rất là quan trọng đối với em cũng như là các bạn đồng trang lứa của em ngồi đây ngày hôm nay, và em cảm thấy là mình được may mắn khi mình là người Việt Nam và mình được bày tỏ cái sự tự hào của mình cho những người của những cái chủng tộc khác thấy được là mình rất là tự hào mình là người Việt Nam và mình muốn cái điều tốt đẹp nhất đến với cộng đồng người Việt Nam mình ở đây cũng như là ở các khắp nơi trên thế giới.
Hi, I'm Faith Nguyen. I go to Westminster High School. I'm a senior. I'm the lead external representative of VPC, the Vietnamese Program Committee, and I'm also the president of Make-A-Wish and Habitat for Humanity at West. I think being an Asian American specifically it's a very unique experience because it's a battle of culture. You're seeing sides from the people that you meet in school, the people you meet in the outside world, these minds that are so different from what you come home to, what you're brought up with. And it's like a constant battle to balance that out and really try to see yourself from a perspective from the middle.
Hi, I'm Tom Nguyen, or Thomas, I go by Thomas. And here at school, I'm the president of the American Red Cross Club. And also, I'm a St. Barbara Church confirmation catechist. And I teach, about Catholicism. And I'm also a VACC performer as well. And to answer your question on what it means to be an Asian American, I think there are two key aspects to it in which, as an Asian American, you have to endure and also hope, because many Asian Americans, of course, weren't always in America. They came to America looking for a better life. And with that, moving from your home country to a new world, there's going to be a lot of struggles. But through those struggles, that I feel if we go through them together, that's what unites us as a people and what gives us hope for a brighter future.
Hi, my name is Richard Nguyen. I am the marketing coordinator for VACC and also the historian for Red Cross. When I think of being an Asian American, if I can say it in one word, I would say that Asian Americans are strong. Because I think about my family when they came here to America, you had to persevere through hardship. And so, even through all of that, they became successful. And so I really do mean it when I say that I think Asian Americans are strong.
Dạ chào mọi người, em tên là Sophie Nguyễn và em là lớp 12 và em là cái president cho Key Club trường con và em là cái program coordinator của cái volunteering program ở Nhân Hòa Clinic gần đây, và also làm những cái science competitions cho merits để just really into like women in STEM and representing minorities and women overall. And to answer your question, to be an Asian American is a pride but also a challenge. I definitely am super proud of my own culture from being both Vietnamese and also American, because as Faith says, we have to find the balance between the two cultures, and I really appreciate having both perspectives coming from my families on the more traditional side and the more progressive side of what America is now. It's just that the greater challenges are always like breaking generational trauma and really addressing that. And I'm really proud to be American as well, because like the opportunities here allow us the chance to break that trauma, but also to represent the people from our country back in Vietnam by getting higher education, getting job opportunities, and really spreading awareness on all of our culture and also our social problems.
Dạ, chào mọi người. Tên của em là Jennifer Vu. I attend Westminster High School. I am currently a junior, and I am the treasurer of the Westminster Red Cross along with Thomas and Richard. And then I am also in Phong Bộ Chao and Lan Vietnam. So to be Vietnamese American, I'm also part of tennis too. So to be Vietnamese American to me, I really relate to what Thomas's message was about enduring. So to me, growing up in my family, I've always learned to endure. No matter the hardships, no matter the struggles, we have to all learn to push through it and get past it. And together we create community through enduring together and through persistence.
Right, thank you. So if I had to, again, each of you guys brought up really good words to describe what it means to be Asian American, or specifically for us, Vietnamese American, right? So I know you mentioned about pride, you mentioned about culture, you mentioned about hope, you mentioned about strong, you mentioned about challenges, and endure, right? And so, you know, when we're talking about like being an Asian American, Vietnamese American, there's so much that you all shared, and you're involved with so much in the community that you feel that prideness, that proudness of being active in the community. Yet, however, there's so much positive in that area, but there's still always hate happening towards, and especially like how we saw in the video, towards our Asian American culture and groups and populations.
He lifts behind the pack and I. He lifts behind the pack and I. What's your real name?
Ai cũng đã nghe qua sự thù ghét, nhưng định nghĩa về sự thù ghét là như thế nào? Khi đối diện, khi chứng kiến những hành vi được xem là thù ghét thì mình nên làm gì? Đó là điều mà các em trình bày theo cách nghĩ của riêng mình.
And so here's my first question for you all is, what does it mean to stand up against hate? Okay, what does that mean for you? And I think I want to bring this over to, let me start off with Ben, Sophie, because I know, Sophie, you talked about that there's always challenges, you know, and you mentioned about how being in like a program like Merits, where women in STEM, right, representing the minority groups and stuff. Going back to the question is, what does it mean to stand up against hate?
So I would first define what hate is. So to me, hate means like kind of like offensive or like threats against a person, I guess like based on their identity and what they stand for, and especially hate in our context as Asian Americans. To stand up to hate means that we definitely have to break across the social pressures of conforming. We have to definitely stand up for ourselves, but also to stand up to others, especially for those that can't defend themselves, like the elderly people in those videos. And to stand up to hate means to also to educate ourselves on the issues and not remain ignorant, because to me, ignorance is one of the strongest roots of hate in general. And to educate ourselves on these issues, we must also strive for advocacy. We have to learn from our mistakes and really expand our horizons and remain open-minded.
And I know that you mentioned about ignorance. Can anybody here kind of define what does it mean to be ignorant. We hear that word a lot, we use it a lot, but what does it mean to be ignorant? And again, how does that connect to building that hate? If anyone here would like to add on to Sophie.
I think that in school we all have learned about the idea of group mentality. And so oftentimes when you see something happening on the street, maybe like a fight happening or maybe like something bad is happening outside, a lot of people tend to undermine it and walk away from it or move past it. And that like is the bliss, like that is what ignorance is. That is like moving away from it, allowing it to happen. That is ignorance.
Okay, thank you. And so we also, okay, so now my next question here is thinking of that group mentality, right? And hearing what people may say, seeing those attacks firsthand and not doing anything about it. It leads us into the idea of that hate speech then, right? So what is hate speech?
I think to me, hate speech, in my own definition, really is any speech that is categorized to be just hateful, to cause harm to someone, to intend to hurt a certain community, a certain person. It's words that don't have a good intention. And I think in regards to Asian Americans and hate crimes in America, we have a lot of instances where we are, I would say, very little when it comes to defense for hate speech, for our elders, for us. I see like a lot of people, they talk about the COVID, and then they talk about like eating bats, they talk about certain things that they like to joke about, and it's passed off as okay. I feel like it's a lot more acceptable to be to talk about hate speech in regards to Asian Americans in social media, in the world, in the media, than other minority groups. And I think that's one of the issues that we need to talk about today.
We will need to talk about today. And then Anne, em có thể là bổ sung thêm một chút về cái hate speech, or cũng như là about standing up against hate as well too.
Thì để trả lời cho câu hỏi của cô thì em cảm thấy là khi mà mình talk about stand up to những cái mà hate speech đang diễn ra trong cái thế giới của mình bây giờ á, thì em suy nghĩ đến hai cái từ là từ bảo vệ. Tại vì mình phải suy nghĩ là làm sao mình có thể bảo vệ được bản thân mình khỏi những cái vấn đề đó, cũng như là bảo vệ những người xung quanh mình về cái vấn đề đó. Và em cảm thấy là thêm vào những cái gì mà các bạn đã nói trước đây đó, thì em cảm thấy là bây giờ cái xã hội của mình bây giờ, thế giới mình bây giờ càng ngày nó càng hiện đại, thành ra là có rất là nhiều cái phương tiện hate speech, nó có thể come off lên rất là nhiều cái phương tiện khác nhau. Có thể là người ta nói bằng miệng, hoặc là người ta có thể nói trên mạng xã hội, social media, người ta có thể post về cái này cái kia, và nó cảm thấy là em cảm thấy là càng ngày thì nó sẽ càng expand ra theo một cái cách rất là negative nếu như mà mình cứ để cho cái vấn đề này tiếp tục. Thành ra em thấy là mình phải có một cái giải pháp nào đó để mình có thể bảo vệ được cái cộng đồng người Việt Nam của mình khỏi cái vấn đề này, cũng như là bảo vệ chính bản thân mình và người thân của mình khỏi cái vấn đề hate speech towards the Vietnamese American.
So building a stronger community as well as supporting our Vietnamese American population as well too, right? And so bây giờ cô muốn hỏi bên Richard và Thomas, harassment. What does harassment mean? Or nếu hai em có thể là giải thích một chút về cái từ harassment. What is that?
By standing up to hate, it's not necessarily doing anything about the hate, but more so staying strong in who you are and what you're doing and what you're meant to do. And essentially, hate speech and hate, I feel like, is supposed to target like whoever is being hit on and bring them down, essentially. But to stand up to that means to stay strong. And with hate speech, again, like what everyone else said, it can be like harmful and like offensive language that's just meant to like demean a certain people or person, you know. And on the topic of harassment though, I feel like there's a distinction between hate speech and harassment. And in harassment, however, hate speech is kind of taken to a point that's like way too far, when a person might be like physically harassed and have like their boundaries crossed and feel violated as a person.
I really like what you said, Thomas. Like, you have to be strong against hate speech, definitely. But I also feel like if you don't do anything about it, then like it's gonna keep happening, right? And when I think of, and like it reminds me of like 9/11 and like the Muslim community after, or anyone that looked like them, right? Like there was definitely hate directed towards those communities, and so like same thing's happening with the Vietnamese community after COVID, right? And like they just want, I guess they just kind of look for someone to blame, I guess, but
And not just Vietnamese, like
yeah,
Americans overall.
right? Yeah, just Asian Americans, any Asian in general, right? Just people that look Asian.
I want to really add to that as well, that it's like hatred is not something that can be stopped, because no matter what in the world, no matter what the topic is, even like about this, hatred can't be stopped. And Thomas is right, like you have to like stand strong against it. It's about building a community and building a place of support, so that like it's a little cheesy, but like that love stands stronger than the hate, you know?
And it's interesting how you bring up about how hate can't be stopped, because you know what, in all of us, we do hate something, right? Like I hate eating onions, or I hate eating green onions, right? But that doesn't take me to the point where I'm gonna start attacking all of the green onions and say no more green onions, right? There's levels to it as well too, right? And then when we talk about the hate speech, like how you guys are mentioning, it's like how Thomas said, it's beyond that. It's like taking it too far, right? And so my question here is, because we're talking about, again, the hate speech and the whole idea of like harassment and stuff. And
He looks at my name tag and asks. He looks at my name tag and asks, what's your real name?
Trong buổi thảo luận, mỗi em đã chia sẻ những câu chuyện của riêng mình, câu chuyện về sự phân biệt đối xử, bị định kiến và bị từ chối. Từ việc phân biệt chủng tộc đến việc bị bắt nạt, những trải nghiệm của các em diễn ra dưới nhiều hình thức khác nhau, nhưng tụ chung lại cũng xuất phát từ sự căm ghét. Khi nói ra được những gì mình từng nếm trải, liệu có điều gì đó thay đổi trong mỗi em không? Quả thật, cách họ nhìn nhận thế giới đã thay đổi.
have you all ever heard hate speech around you, or even had hate speech happen to you directly, either in person or online? And I saw, but go type in Faith, like you had a bit of reaction, so go ahead, Am.
Yeah, actually, I remember back in 7th grade, I took a trip to Chinatown with my sister up in LA, and we were taking photos. It was my first time being there. I remember I was really excited to be there because I was trying like a lot of new food that I hadn't tried. And I was like, oh, like this is a really cool statue over here. Like, can you take a picture of me? And I talked to my sister, and she was like, okay, cool, I'll stand over here. So she stood there and she took a picture, and I guess she was standing like a little too close to the sidewalk. This person passes by and actually calls her the C word and tells her to like go back to her country, and that she should never have been there in the first place, and that we weren't needed here, and that we were just COVID that was spreading. And I remember just thinking it was crazy because I had never experienced anything like that before. And I didn't think that it even, not that it didn't exist, but that it was so far removed away from me that it could not happen. That the chances of it happening to me out of all people was very low. But I guess that experience really just opened my eyes to realize like, it could really be anyone. It could be anyone at all. And in that circumstance, it was me.
I guess like for me, my incident also happened in 7th grade. Yeah. So yeah, I was actually on vacation with my family, and me and my brother just happened to be a little bit more separated from the rest of the adults in our family. And we were just casually waiting for our elevator, and then there were 2 other individuals who did happen to express like their hate against us. But it was in the form of not only words but also gestures, like the very iconic squinting of their eyes towards us. But I guess it was the most surprising factor was that they were kids and that they were like the same age as us. Like usually when you think of hate speech, you think of older adults kind of directing it towards you. But to us, it was literally kids that just looked a little bit different than us, but essentially were the same age as us. And it really shows how, I guess, like hate speech in general is learned, that it's like passed down through like their older adults in their family, that they learned how to hate other kids who really didn't do anything against them. And like whenever I think about it, it makes me really mad, because like who taught these kids to be so hateful in the first place? But also like why did they really conform? And I guess like hate on other kids as well.
Yeah, and honestly, I can relate to both Sophie and Faith on that. In the school I was at the time, it wasn't a majority like Asian or Hispanic population, but there were actually a lot of Caucasian people as well. And I remember during lunch, I think we were just lining up or something. Like my Caucasian friend, I'm not sure like what I did to prompt this, or he wasn't really my friend, just my classmate, but he kind of made like, I think there was a lot of news going on about the North Korean dictator at the time, or Kim Jong-un, and for some reason I think he thought it was like funny to like make remarks on me, on like how I looked, or like just pretty much call me like Kim Jong-un like that. I'm not even Korean, I'm Vietnamese. That was a big point of confusion for me as well. And while I wasn't at the time, I shared the same feelings of confusion, like why am I being called this, like what kind of like, I just wasn't really sure what was going on. But looking back on it, like now, I'm not necessarily mad at my Caucasian classmate, but I just think that a lot could be said about how he was parented, because that's something that's like learned. That's not something we're born with.
And if I could actually add to what they both said, this is something that I was wondering too, because the person that actually said what they said to my sister and I was another colored person from a different race as me, but they were also not like a Caucasian person. They're from another minority group. And I was just wondering, like, what causes someone to go through life as a minority and face hardships as said minority and still find the hatred in their heart to be hateful towards another minority, even though they've gone through the same things?
Actually, I want to add on to that. It's not just like other minorities, it's also within our own community. Like I asked my parents about this topic the other night, and they said that, oh, the Vietnamese community also has a lot of hate speech against each other. And it was actually really surprising to me, but at the same time, not, because I've witnessed both sides to like our Vietnamese families and cultures, and I really seen how we hurt each other despite going through like the same or similar obstacles. Instead of like empathizing and supporting one another, we put each other's down and engage in hateful activities like hate speech, and it really surprises me, like because of this.
Okay, so minority groups doing things to each other as well too. And would you like to add anything to that?
Em cảm thấy thì em cũng có cái kinh nghiệm cũng giống với các bạn ở đây. Thì riêng với em thì em qua Mỹ năm 2020, thì đồng thời cái lúc đó là Covid nó vẫn còn đang diễn ra. Thành ra là cái bước mà em từ Việt Nam mà sang Mỹ thì người ta kiểu như người ta cảm thấy những bé này nó mới qua Mỹ mà nghe nói ở Việt Nam Covid nhiều lắm, thì không biết là nó có phải là cái người mà đem hay là lây bệnh hay là lây nhiễm bệnh ở đây hay không.
Và cái đó là em nói là người trong nhà nói với em hay người trong cộng đồng hay sao?
Dạ, em đang chuẩn bị nói đến cái vấn đề đó thì em cũng connect với lại cái idea của các bạn đó, là không chỉ những cái người những người mà không phải là thuộc cái cộng đồng thiểu số của mình đó, không chỉ những người đó có hate speech với mình, nhưng mà cũng có những người trong cộng đồng thiểu số của mình cũng nói như vậy. Thì em cảm thấy là cũng hơi bất ngờ với em, tại vì lúc đó thì culture shock rồi rất là nhiều thứ xảy ra. Và thêm một cái điều nữa là những cái người Việt Nam cũng cùng từ Việt Nam qua giống mình thôi, người ta qua trước mình một vài năm thôi, nhưng mà người ta cái cách mà người ta nhìn cái người Việt Nam mới qua nó giống như người ta thấy mình không có bằng người ta. Thành ra em thấy là không chỉ là những cái người mà không thuộc cái cộng đồng thiểu số của mình cũng look down những cái người Việt Nam mới qua, và em cảm thấy nó cũng là một cái vấn đề trong cái cộng đồng của mình. Và mặc dù em cũng nhận biết được một điều là những cái người Việt Nam mình rất là yêu thương và rất là trân trọng cái văn hóa của mình, nhưng mà cũng có một cái nhóm người nhất định họ vẫn có những cái suy nghĩ ganh ghét và ganh tị đối với những người Việt Nam của những cái thành phần khác. Và em cảm thấy đúng như là những gì mà bạn Sophie nói, những cái người mà họ đã từng trải qua khó khăn trong cuộc đời của họ, họ đã từng trải qua những cái chuyện gọi là đau buồn trong cuộc đời họ, thì họ cảm thấy là những người Việt Nam như mình cũng phải trải qua như vậy, là họ cảm thấy là nếu như mình bị vậy thì người khác cũng bị vậy. Tại vì đó là cái giống như cái mindset, cái suy nghĩ của những người Việt Nam truyền thống thì người ta nghĩ là nếu như mà mình là người trải qua những cái khó khăn trong cuộc đời như vậy đó, thì tại sao những cái người Việt Nam bây giờ người ta sống vui vẻ hạnh phúc như vậy, đúng không? Thì người ta mới cảm thấy là nếu như mà như vậy thì mình cũng phải làm cho người ta đau khổ. Đó cũng là relate cho cái tình huống của bạn.
So that's like the generational thing, right? The generational trauma that passes on from generation.
Cũng liên quan đến tình huống của bạn Phước, là bạn Phước cũng cảm thấy giống như là mình những người thiểu số mà lại look down trên chị, và là chính bạn Phước cũng như vậy. Thành em cảm thấy là đó là một cái vấn đề mà
He looks at my name tag and he looks at my name tag and what's your real name?
Nó không bao giờ mà nó dập tắt. Nó giống như cái vấn đề về cái sự ganh ghét người Việt Nam hay là cái cộng đồng châu Á nói chung á, nó là giống như nó là ngọn lửa này. Ngọn lửa nó luôn luôn ở đó, nó không bao giờ dập tắt hết. Nhưng mà nó chỉ cái vấn đề là nó cháy nhanh hay là cháy chậm thôi, cháy nhẹ.
You guys shared a lot about things that happen in person, right? And unfortunately now in our generation now, mình có a lot of social media and things that happen online, right? Have any of you ever experienced any or seen hate speech online as well too? Like on social media, Facebook, Instagram, anything online as well too.
I want to start this off by saying, like, also this is like partial to the last topic as well, that before I lived in Westminster, I used to live in a predominantly white area, or just any other culture, but Asians were less than 1% there. So living there was definitely like a different experience for me, because I stuck out like a sore thumb, like in the crowd, you know, like you could see me from a mile away with my black hair, like brown eyes, darker skin, you know, like it was easy to spot me. So being in that position, like I tried so hard to connect with these people that like aren't necessarily me, but I did not get that same experience in return. I did not experience that same connection in return, and that was shown. Like, I considered these people my friends, but it's not very friendly to make those what you call a joke insult, like to insult someone like as a joke, like being like, haha, like you dog eater, like that's not very funny. Like that's making a remark towards me. And I want to add to, like, Tom's too, like I want to add to Faith, I think said that it doesn't happen with just like what we think. A lot of time I think the society thinks that it's just people that are white that say this. It's not. It's other minorities as well. And I heard this from many other minorities online as well. I received a lot of hateful messages, a lot of posts too. A lot of people would comment very rude things, and it was all marked as a joke because, oh, we're friends, right? Like, it's okay, right? Because we're friends. I care about you, of course. Like I wouldn't do anything to hurt you. But just because someone says that, it doesn't mean you're still not allowed. Like, you're not allowed to hurt anyways.
So like those hateful things online, it's not necessary and it's not needed at all. And unfortunately for online, sometimes it's anonymous too, right? You never know who's posting it. It could be anybody. It could be person of minority. It could be person not a minority. But that's just the online world of it too.
Yeah, I agree that like with anonymity online, like people are willing to say a lot more. And also with that, like say more extreme things. Like I remember like online, like someone once told me these are very like stereotypical things, but it's like they told me to like go, don't you have like a nail salon job to work at or something, because a lot of Vietnamese like aunties and moms like I guess do have nail salons. And one that like I'm not gonna forget, this is so crazy to me when I heard it. It was like someone asked me like how many of your aunties had to become prostitutes to afford your family to move to America. And I was like, damn, that's just wild, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it's like there's very blatant examples such as what Jen and Thomas mentioned, where it's just right in your face, you know it's Asian hate, and then you acknowledge it. But then there's also, I think it's so widespread that it comes down to like even like the smallest details. Say you're scrolling through like Instagram and then you see like a video like an Asian person making Asian food, and then you look into the comments, you'll see people calling their food like disgusting or weird or I would never eat that. And just because it's Asian and it's originated in Asia. And I think it's like, it all comes down to like the smallest things that are just so acceptable in day-to-day life that I just feel like it's so upsetting to see.
And to lead into the next one, because you mentioned about how like, yeah, somebody who could be making a video about Asian food or Vietnamese food, let's say, and then just reading the comments about it, right? Being anti. Why do you all think these attacks happen to our Asian community? Like, what's the reason behind it? Or what's the basis behind it? Why do we get these attacks?
To me, it's definitely the idea of us versus them, as in like people will always consider Asians as foreigners, even if they've been born in the US for like many generations already. Like, I think that's just like the general idea that a lot of people have about, I guess, all minorities. But I guess like the Asian population, or like because of COVID, there's just spike in Asian hate has just increased so much that people think it's more normalized than the other minorities to just like hate on them. But it's definitely, there's such thing as called the, I forgot what it was called, but I think it was like model minority myth. Yeah, it's just like minorities have been pit against each other for so long. Like, I've talked to my own family, like they compare us against like Hispanic and Black families, even though we're all minorities and fighting towards like the same goal of achieving success and happiness and being to really freely express ourselves in America. And because of the model minority myth, like people become jealous of each other. They want to put each other down so that we can rise up, and even within their own community that exists as well.
Would any of you guys like to explain what the model minority myth is? I know, Sophie, for some example.
Yeah, actually, so the model minority myth is basically the stereotype or like the thought that Asians are just like the model minority. We're the minority that's like made it. We're successful, and we should be like, we're the minority that are looked up to. We are like the stereotypical what a minority should be. And I think it's so harmful because Asians in general, if you think about like the stereotypical Asian, you think about like someone that's like maybe pale, they've gone to like a really good college, they have like 4.0 GPA, really successful job. And just because of that, we're put into this position where we are not white people, but we're also not categorized the same as other minorities who may be of a less fair skin color, may not be achieving not achieving like the grades that stereotypical Asians would achieve. And just because of that, we're put into this, once again, position where hate and standards are a lot higher for us, and hate is just supposed to be passed off for us because we have it better than other people, even though this experience in itself is a unique one that has its own problems.
And I want to add to the model minority myth as well. It's crazy because we talked about this earlier about how it's not just the minorities that are pitted against each other. It's also, there's Vietnamese people pitting against other Vietnamese people. And that happens a lot. At my old school, I used to have Vietnamese friends as well. And they've mentioned about having these like standards or like these requirements that have to be met, which obviously is not true, but it's this like competitive idea. And this person that I'm talking about, I started playing tennis recently, and so when I saw them again, the first comment they made towards me was, "Wow, you've gotten a lot darker." And I was like, "Oh, it's an intriguing comment to make."
Because now we're talking about how, you know, different groups are pitted against each other when we shouldn't be, right? We should all be together. We should work together and collaborate together to build a stronger connection and foundation with each other.
He looks at my name tag and asks. He looks at my name tag and asks, "What's your real name?"
Mạng xã hội được xem là con dao hai lưỡi, bởi nó vừa kết nối chúng ta lại với nhau, nhưng đồng thời cũng hé mở cho chúng ta thấy sự khắc nghiệt của thế giới xung quanh. Quan điểm và cảm xúc của những em học sinh này như thế nào khi được xem qua hai đoạn video được phổ biến mạnh mẽ trong thời gian qua. Trong đó có cảnh những người gốc Á bị vô cớ tấn công một cách tàn nhẫn.
What I ask is, you know, just watch the video and let me know, how do you feel about it? Okay, so just take a look here.
We need to talk about anti-Asian hate.
A wave of violence against elderly Asian Americans.
Violent attacks against Asian Americans.
More than 2,800 reports since the pandemic began.
Man attacks the couple.
Elderly woman is chased by a bully.
Slapped her and lit her clothes on fire.
8 people are dead after shootings.
I never see him again.
All right, so that was just a little clip right there. And it's a lot of different compilations. Có rất nhiều những cái video từ những cái trên đài on the news station, okay? And my first question here for you all is, what is your feeling? Em cảm thấy sao sau khi em xem một cái video như vậy? How do you feel about just seeing those clips put all together that talks about this Asian hate?
Khi mà coi những cái video này á, làm con rất là đau buồn á, vì những người bị attacked là cái innocent người, và nhiều người đó là người châu Á và là người elderly và không defend themselves against these attacks lại, và làm con rất là buồn vì những cái attacks đó là rất là extreme. Con thấy về trên cái news trên đài á, sau Covid á, thấy nhiều người bị chết về cái attacks này á. Như cái video phim nói cái người bà đó bị lên like fire because of her clothes, and that they were attacked and pushed even though they didn't really ask, they didn't do anything wrong, and they were just victims of like their frustration from these people too.
And I think it's also really hard to watch because you see these elderly getting attacked and you see your parents, you see your grandparents. It's hard to really imagine them being the next victim, but then you know now that there's a chance that it could always happen to you or your family. It's never zero. The chances are never zero.
And it's also the fact that the video too, it was only like less than 30 seconds of the video. It wasn't even the full video, and we don't even know what happened in the full video. For all we know, that entire video could have just been clips of attacks on Asian Americans or just Asian people, the Asian population as a whole. And so we can really just understand that this is a serious problem and serious issue that needs to be addressed.
And that was just a couple of clips, right? So you really don't know where or who it's really happening to other than what you see and what gets recorded at times, right? How about Richard? How did that make you feel?
When I watched those clips, I felt like, I felt mad a little bit, especially when it came to the elderly. It made me think of my grandpa or grandma. It made me like want to made me want to go out and protect them. Right?
Protection, right? That's the thing where right now too, when all of this amount of like what you see in the videos, right? It makes you feel angry and it makes you want to do something about it too. Okay, how about Thomas?
Going off on like what everyone else said too, like it just kind of broke my heart to see like our you know, fellow like, Asian brothers and sisters and parents and grandparents like be victim to like these like acts of like aggression and violence. And I remember, I think a lot of this came up from COVID during, you know, the pandemic, in which Asians were kind of blamed for starting the virus and stuff like that. And I remember seeing a lot of like young Asian men and women get like really fired up just from seeing that they're elderly and parents and like people who can't really defend themselves be victim instead of them, you know. And I can kind of understand that same like anger too.
And would you like to add anything else too?
Theo mà những gì mà các bạn đã chia sẻ thì em cảm thấy là cái video này nó đem lại cho mình cái sự lo lắng như sự buồn phiền cho người thân của mình. Tại vì nếu như mà mình đặt gia đình của mình hay là người thân của mình vào cái hoàn cảnh bị attack như vậy á, thì mình không biết là mình sẽ suy nghĩ như thế nào về cái chuyện như đó, nhưng mà mình không biết là mình có được cái solutions nào để có thể giải quyết được hay không. Và em cảm thấy là như những gì mà Sophie nói á, là những cái người mà họ bị attack này là đa phần là những người lớn tuổi, người già, và họ không có thể có khả năng để bảo vệ bản thân họ. Thành ra là em thấy rất là đau buồn khi mà những cái người mà phải trải qua cái sự attack như thế này lại là những cái người lớn tuổi hơn mình. Và nếu như mà đó là ông bà cha mẹ của mình thì đương nhiên là mình sẽ không thể nào cam lòng chịu đựng được cái sự Asian hate going on in our community right now.
So ma'am, you guys described a lot of different feelings, as well as I think it's important that you also mentioned too that if this were to happen to somebody in your life, right, like your own grandpa, your own parents, you know, like that would makes you feel furious. It makes you feel sad, right? And so that's why we're here today, right? We want to have this space để mình có thể chia sẻ chung với nhau and have a discussion, as well as, you know, bring it up to the world to be able to talk about this, right? And not let it keep on going. Here is another video I have for you, okay? And this one here leading into the idea of supporting each other, okay? I'm gonna give you a quick.
I'm out here in Oakland, Chinatown. I'm gonna walk around, try to protect our people by myself, and no, I ain't tripping. I just want people to stop attacking us for no reason, especially our elderly, kids or whatnot. We've been a target ever since the virus hit. I mean, before that we got, you know, discriminated and whatnot, but it gotten worse. So I just can't sit back and not do anything. Every day walk around after work, that's what I'm gonna do from now on. I'm tired of seeing my people getting attacked. Try to help the Asian community, man. Because I'm Asian my damn self.
And so just a little summarize of that video. So if you haven't seen the video yet, it's basically this Laotian American from NorCal who, because of all of these hate attacks that are happening, like how you all mentioned earlier and what we watched earlier too, he decided to take a stand and he decided to be part of his community and bring people together to basically monitor the streets, to make sure any elders, young kids who are out and about, like they feel protected and they feel safe in their community. And that hopefully with their presence, they can stop these attacks from happening and they can now step up to defend, right? And so after seeing that video, right? And again, this hate speech and all of these actions, not only just happening to Asian populations, but many different groups and populations as well too. What are some of these things that we could do as a community, like how we just watched in the video, right? Like binding together to monitor the streets and help each other out and help other people defend each other. What are some things that we can do now as well too to combat against this hate speech? Again, not just happening to Asian American communities, but a lot of our other communities as well too. Any ideas? What can we do?
Big part in like fighting against hate is I think a lot of people understand the phrase that like you can't fight hate with hate, but with love, right? And so by extending our help to communities beyond like Asian American communities, as well as like Hispanics, Caucasians, Africans, and showing people that we love our community and we love you, right? That kind of combats like the hate that some people could have the perception that we might look down on others, because that kind of ties in the model minority myth, in which a lot of people might think that Asian Americans might view themselves as like superior, right? But if we really just like keep in touch with our community and spread love, not hate, then I think that's the best way to combat hate.
I think it's important to just get out there, like have your voice heard. Make sure, be loud. You want people to know that like you won't stand for this. You want a change. Like for example, I think a lot of Asian hate and even Asian activism, both sides are very prevalent in like say politics. You hear about like your local politicians, even like people up there in higher positions, like the president, for example, the previous one, the current one, talking about AAPI hate or encouraging AAPI hate. And it's just important that our side gets up there, gets heard. Call your local governors, call your local politicians. Make sure that what you stand for is listened to by the leaders of your local communities.
So representation. Go ahead, Richard.
I like how you're taking like an active approach to like stop hate crimes, right? And also because a lot of the things that we said earlier about Asian hate was that it's in our communities, it's in our families, right? And so I feel like what he's doing for the community and like protecting it and making it stronger, it's like a step in the right direction to like stop some of the hate in our communities and families.
And I know we didn't get to watch the whole video, but just also know too that it wasn't just him as an Asian American supporting his community, but he also had somebody who was African American, like his friends, his neighbors, his co-workers, who also decided to volunteer and come out to be with him and show support as well too. Okay, so yes, so that's a good direction to take for him. Okay, any other ideas of how we can combat?
Em cảm thấy là cái vấn đề này thì so với nhiều năm về trước á, thì em cảm thấy là cái cộng đồng người Việt Nam của mình á, người ta cũng có những cái awareness về cái vấn đề này rồi, thì em cảm thấy nó cũng không có gọi là không có khó khăn như thời trước nữa. Thành ra là em cảm thấy là mình chỉ cần nói chung là giống như kiểu giúp đỡ những người trong cộng đồng của mình và giúp cho những cái người mà cộng đồng thiểu số người Asian của mình á, biết thêm cũng như là hiểu rõ thêm về cái vấn đề này, thì giống như là nếu như mà người ta có thể học và người ta có thể hiểu và người ta self-aware về cái vấn đề này hơn thì người ta có thể giúp đỡ những người xung quanh.
But I wanted to add on to like what Anne said as well, like about like spreading information, spreading love. It's just that we should also educate like our youth, like how kids are being raised nowadays, like what I addressed earlier about like hate speech in general. Like these kids are raised, like were raised with like hate in mind from their parents and it was learned. However, to address like the problems with hate speech, we definitely have to show what love is and to accept everyone's differences regardless of race. Especially like what Thomas said, we want to teach these kids to love one another despite their differences and really embrace each other, so that they know that all the lies or whatever hate speech is based on is false information and it's very prejudiced against people if you don't get to know them.
And so, Mayim, I know we're slowly wrapping up for our discussion for today. I just want to give you all the opportunity. Do you have any last comments or last message that you want to share out to the world, basically, about this topic of like hate speech and our Asian American community? I'll give you guys the floor for that. Genevieve, bắt đầu.
I really want to say that the most important thing about all of this hatred in the world is that it's important to stay together and to love each other no matter what, because bringing more hate into a world that already feels hateful, into a world that this Stop Asian Hate movement is not just for Asian. There's been many other minorities that have been hated on as well. For example, when Richard mentioned the 9/11 with Muslims, and even like recently, like BLM movement as well. It's not just Asians that experience all this hatred. And the most important thing is that we need to continue to love each other, stay together, and be a community as one.
I think it's so important to just like continue to stand strong, and like you're gonna get undermined throughout the whole process. No one is obligated to really understand someone else. However, you just have to go through life just like expect that you will not always be in the room with like people that are all on your side. However, you have a set of beliefs, you have a set of morals and values you want to fight for. So in the end, what you need and what you want to accomplish is your ultimate goal.
Yeah, and if I had to leave a message, I would say that this kind of starts off as a story, I guess, but growing up, I live in a very like Vietnamese American like bubble. I'm surrounded by a lot of Vietnamese people, especially at the school. But growing up, even like I never really felt like very proud of my culture, because I guess like growing up with shows and like being exposed to media, there's not a lot of Asian representation nowadays. Nowadays there are, but growing up there wasn't really much. And seeing like all my favorite superheroes and actors and YouTubers and all that be like different races, I was never really proud of my culture until I guess more so recently. But before, I remember like remembering my family's like upbringing and how we got here. I came to America in like 2008, right? And I live in a family of 6. And so I definitely come from like a low income household. And I remember as a kid, like I would just like get sad thinking about how like my dad had like nothing growing up, and how like my mom, like she was like super smart, but just so that she could take care of her family, she decided to be a single mother. And I guess what I thought was that she wasted that talent. But as I grew up, I kind of understood that it's not that their future or like their lives were wasted away because of like their situation of moving to America, but it's more so they trust in me and my brothers and sisters to like lead a better future, And through that, I used to be ashamed of coming from a poor family and like not wearing the coolest clothes and stuff like that. But now I take pride in where I've come from, and I think that's like a big part of being Asian American.
So I guess like some of my ending messages, like especially against like Asian hate and like hate crimes in general, I just want everyone to know that I think with what Faye said was to remain strong regardless of what happens. Even if you feel alone those times, remember that there's always a community and other victims that could connect with you and really empathize with you and reassure you that you're not alone, and to also reassure you to continue fighting for your values. Especially with the online age, you can share your message, whatever happens, like share what happened to you, and you can find other people to direct you on what you need to do, or any form of emotional support you can find. It's just that hate is so prevalent, but love is also very prevalent, because I believe, have an innate sense of helping others, and I want to believe in that human potential that everyone also has.
I just want to leave one final message for everyone about Asian American hate, and I just want to say, like, I feel like what we all can do, not just Asians but just everyone, right? I feel like what we all can do to I guess try to stop Asian American hate is to stand up, right? Because I feel like there are a lot more bystanders than there are haters, right? So I feel like even if it's just one bystander that takes a stand voice to prevent an attack or to prevent someone harassing an Asian American, I feel like there would be a lot less Asian American like hate crimes being committed, and so I feel like that's one simple solution that we can all take going forward.
Yes, standing up and knowing that you have a community, you have a calm down. And you know what, Mayam, you guys are taking that first step, right? Where you're here to be able to talk about this conversation, this kind of discussion, and share your own experiences. So, you should be proud of yourself for coming today, as well as sharing those stories that, not everyone likes to talk about. We want to just hide it all the time. But you know what? We're a community. We're proud of who we are, and we're here today to let people be more aware of it. Okay? So thank you so much, Mayam, for coming.
6 em học sinh này đã cùng nhau trở thành tiếng nói về sự thay đổi, là những người ủng hộ cho một thế giới không có chỗ cho sự thù ghét. Trong hành trình chung đó, họ tìm thấy sức mạnh, lòng kiên nhẫn và tầm nhìn về một tương lai mà tình yêu sẽ chiến thắng sự căm ghét. Hãy để điều này là một bằng chứng cho sức mạnh của cuộc đối thoại, lòng cảm thông và sự đoàn kết. Cùng nhau, họ gửi một thông điệp đến mọi người đang xem chương trình này. Stop the hate, break the love, dứt hận thù, gieo yêu thương.